Welcome, seekers of history. Today we unlock a grand mystery buried deep in the golden sands of time. Paris, 1822. A brilliant scholar screams in sudden triumph, then collapses from sheer exhaustion. His name was Jean-François Champollion. He had just cracked an ancient code that baffled the entire world. For 2,000 years, the magnificent voices of ancient Egyptian pharaohs remained completely silent. Let us rewind to a dusty trench in Egypt, where a simple black stone changed human history forever. Long before the French forces arrived, the glorious Egyptian empire stood as a beacon of unmatched power. Towering pyramids and massive temples dominated the endless, scorching horizon of the desert. The majestic, ancient stone walls were fully covered in breathtaking, intricate hieroglyphic writing. These magnificent, sacred carvings were meant to preserve the divine legacy of the mighty pharaohs forever. However, the merciless passage of time slowly erased the profound meaning of these sacred ancient symbols. By the early 4th century, the ancient knowledge required to read this beautiful script was completely lost. For nearly 2 millennia, not a single scholar on Earth could understand the ancient Egyptian tongue. European explorers viewed these complex carvings merely as decorative, magical illustrations. They foolishly believed the hieroglyphs were merely mystical spells, rather than a highly structured language. The vibrant history and epic poetry of a dominant civilization faded away. It was a truly tragic silence. The once great pharaohs became nameless ghosts, haunting the endless golden dunes. Their magnificent achievements were buried deep beneath thick layers of shifting sand and sheer human ignorance. Historical records show many European scholars attempted to decode the massive ruins. But every single attempt ended in total failure, deepening the historical mystery. The ancient civilization seemed locked away behind an unbreakable linguistic barrier. A profound darkness covered the spectacular achievements of the legendary Egyptian architects. Even the native inhabitants of Egypt had long forgotten the glorious language of their ancestors. The world desperately needed a miracle to bridge the massive gap between the past and the present. Without a bilingual translation key, the magnificent stones would remain forever quiet and lifeless. Respected historians concluded the ancient Egyptian code was simply impossible to break. They finally accepted that the majestic voices of the pharaohs were lost to the cruel winds of time. The silent pyramids stood merely as empty tombs, holding on to secrets that nobody could uncover. Yet, destiny had a surprising plan, hidden deep beneath the scorching sands of the Egyptian desert. A grand, accidental discovery would soon shatter the quiet darkness that consumed the ancient world. The incredible breakthrough would not come from a scholar, but from a weary French military engineer. A brutal military campaign would become the absolute key to historical enlightenment. The harsh, echoing drums of war were about to forcefully awaken the sleeping spirits of the great pharaohs. If an entire civilization forgets its own voice, can it ever truly be remembered by the world? In 1799, the French army under Napoleon invaded the scorching desert. The ambitious general sought to conquer the mysterious lands and study their grand antiquities. Amidst the sweltering heat, French engineering soldiers worked tirelessly to fortify the Julienne fortress. They furiously dug deep defensive trenches near the small and dusty coastal town, widely known as Rosetta. The brutal midday sun relentlessly scorched the tired, sweating backs of the weary French infantrymen. Suddenly, a young French officer named Pierre-François Bouchard struck something remarkably solid in the dirt. His heavy iron pickaxe violently hit a massive, dark rock buried deep beneath the thick layer of yellow sand. As exhausted soldiers carefully brushed away the dirt, a stunning black granodiorite slab appeared. The mysterious stone contained no gold, yet its historical value was truly immeasurable. Bouchard immediately noticed that the heavy, flat surface was densely covered in strange, carved writing. Upon closer inspection, the French engineers realized the artifact featured 3 distinct textual bands. The top section clearly displayed the sacred, complex hieroglyphs of the ancient Egyptian royal priesthood. The middle section contained Demotic, the everyday cursive script used by the common ancient citizens. But the bottom section was the absolute game-changer. It was flawlessly written in classical ancient Greek. Historical records state the French scholars immediately recognized its deep significance.
It is the key to everything.
Because educated Europeans could fluently read ancient Greek, this stone was a linguistic gold mine. It was an official royal decree issued by King Ptolemy V, recorded in 3 different scripts. The eager scholars quickly deduced that all 3 distinct sections conveyed the exact same royal message. This massive black slab was indeed the ultimate translation key the entire world had been waiting for. The legendary Rosetta Stone was carefully transported to the specialized French Research Institute. However, the fierce British military soon defeated the French forces and captured the priceless artifact. The majestic stone was subsequently moved to the British Museum, where it proudly remains today. Fortunately, the diligent French scholars had already made numerous ink impressions of the carvings. These crucial paper copies were rapidly distributed to brilliant linguists all across the continent. An intense intellectual race officially began among the greatest European minds. The ultimate goal was to become the first person to completely decipher the ancient Egyptian code. But despite possessing the bilingual key, the monumental task proved to be incredibly challenging. The complex ancient hieroglyphs stubbornly refused to reveal their deep secrets for another 20 years. The fascinating narrative now shifts to a cramped study room in 19th century Paris. Here, a brilliant prodigy named Jean-François Champollion dedicated his life to the puzzle. Champollion was a genius who had mastered multiple ancient languages since his childhood. He spent countless sleepless nights obsessively studying the intricate paper copies of the Rosetta Stone. Surrounded by towering stacks of old books, his tired eyes carefully scanned every single symbol. The flickering light of his warm oil lamp cast dramatic, deep shadows across his pale, exhausted face. Many prominent British scholars argued that the Egyptian hieroglyphs were purely symbolic pictures.
Correlates directly to the Pharaohs' lineage.
They incorrectly assumed that each drawing simply represented a complete word or a specific concept.
Fundamental misunderstanding.
But Champollion boldly questioned this widely accepted theory, pushing linguistic boundaries. He focused his intense attention on the specific oval rings known as cartouches carved on the stone. He brilliantly hypothesized that these protective circles exclusively contained the names of royalty. By carefully comparing the Greek text, he identified the phonetic spelling of the ruler named Ptolemy. Using another ancient artifact, he soon recognized the royal name of Cleopatra. This incredible comparison directly led to a groundbreaking linguistic revelation. Champollion realized the hieroglyphs were not just static images, but also represented sounds. It was a highly advanced writing system that elegantly combined phonetic and symbolic signs. His ink-stained fingers trembled violently as he rapidly applied this new theory to other documents. The confusing shapes slowly transformed into readable syllables, words, and complete logical sentences. After years of frustrating failures, the beautiful ancient language finally began to speak to him. In 1822, he matched the royal name of Ramses using his phonetic alphabet system.
We have the key.
He suddenly realized he could read the majestic ancient texts that predated the Greek era entirely. The monumental discovery completely overwhelmed his exhausted mind and fragile body. Hastily gathering his chaotic notes, the pale scholar desperately ran through the busy streets of Paris. He burst into his brother's academic office, wildly waving the decisive translation paper. With wide, ecstatic eyes and a trembling voice, he boldly shouted his legendary final conclusion. "I have finally found it!" he screamed in pure joy, right before his exhausted body instantly collapsed. The brilliant and dedicated linguist fainted onto the floor, falling into a deep coma for 5 long days. Yet his tremendous personal sacrifice had successfully unlocked the stubborn gates of the ancient world. The Rosetta Stone had officially fulfilled its profound historical destiny forever. Suddenly, the lifeless stone walls standing in Egypt began to miraculously speak once again. The long-forgotten language flowed powerfully across the ancient temples and the grand monuments. Thousands of previously silent hieroglyphs transformed back into the majestic voices of the pharaohs. The epic mythology and divine rituals were entirely restored to the modern human race. For the first time in millennia, scholars could accurately document their daily existence. They read about the massive construction projects and the brutal realities of ancient warfare. The glorious phantoms of the past suddenly materialized from the golden desert shadows. History is absolutely never destroyed. It merely waits patiently for someone to listen. Champollion had successfully given a beautiful voice back to the quiet, forgotten kings. The impressive legacy of ancient Egypt was firmly secured for all future generations. Without the Rosetta Stone, humanity would still be completely blind to its own origin. This dramatic story proves the undeniable power of language to conquer mortality. Physical monuments will inevitably crumble, but written knowledge endures the test of time. The relentless dedication of one single man illuminated the darkest corners of the past. Today, the magnificent translation key rests peacefully inside the famous British Museum. Millions of fascinated visitors admire its broken edges and deeply carved ancient inscriptions. It remains a powerful symbol of our collective desire to truly understand our heritage. A timeless, silent messenger bridging the immense gap between the ancient builders and modern thinkers. Every great discovery in archaeology owes a profound debt to this black piece of rock. It truly reminds us that ancient knowledge is the ultimate treasure, far more valuable than gold. We must fiercely protect our historical archives to preserve our fundamental identity. When a native language dies, an entire universe of human experience totally vanishes. The stunning story of the Rosetta Stone is a true testament to brilliant human intellect. It clearly demonstrates how a single ancient artifact can rewrite the established history books. As we gaze upon the majestic Egyptian monuments today, we can finally hear their voices. They whisper ancient tales of mighty conquerors, divine rituals, and eternal celestial gods. All thanks to a brilliant French scholar and a heavy black stone discovered in the hot desert sand. The Rosetta Stone proves that true immortality lies not in grand monuments, but in written words. Could modern civilization be forgotten if digital records are destroyed? Share your thoughts below. If you enjoyed this journey through time, please like, share, and subscribe for more epic historical tales.